Thank you very much, Mr. Rabani. May we now hear from Dr. Wanun.
Can I share the screen, please?
Yes. Patty, share screen.
Patty, can you please turn off the screen so that Wanun can share? Thank you.
I can now. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for the opportunity. My second round today after this morning session that was really interactive in the morning. My name is Wanun Permpibul. I am from Climate Watch Thailand. My talk today is it's about women's engagement in the climate justice and NDC of Thailand, and how we amplify and also bring their voices to the regional and also international level. This work is part of the collaboration with Forest and Farmers Foundation, Thai NGOs Committee on Agrarian Reform and Rural Development, and Women's Alliance for Climate Justice. We believe in our work and also in terms of how to bring about changes to the local communities' needs and to respond to all those concerns. So we have 4 domains in our work. So starting with capacity building, if you could see it from the left, up left, and then the knowledge and research tools, and then advocacy opportunity, and then the movement architecture. And with all of these domains, it would also ensure the culture of solidarity and the culture of accountability. So how are we working on this together with the women community? We started with the capacity building. And these are the capacity building that we work together with the local women and grassroots women in the lower northern part of Thailand. Climate change is, if you're talking about scientific of climate change, that is something else, but local communities have already observed changes on the ground. So they know that climate has already been changing. And the way they know it is because of their observation, and their lives and livelihoods are directly related to the climate system. So whether it is drought or it is floods or it is other extreme climatic events, they have already been observing those changes. So in terms, what we have done together is to bring in the climate issues, climate justice issues, what has been the current updates at the national level as well, and also at the international level. This is just to give them the idea of how are we going to address the climate issues at the local and grassroots level, and to bring those voices to the regional, to the national, regional, and international level. So we were talking about together with them on the different climate related plans, and we've been introducing skills for them to understand the climate issues. It was talking since about COP1 or even the Rio summit more than 20 years ago. So those kind of the long process on building the capacity of women on the ground. And then after that, they have identified what they really think as their first priorities in terms of climate impacts. And the 2 things have been identified, droughts and heat. So with that drought and heat, it has been impacted them quite immensely. So we then together with them trying to come up with how are we understanding those droughts and heat as a result of climate change in the local languages, and how to engage women on the ground. So you've seen this one. It has been in order for women to understand and to build their capacity. They have identified 4 questions together with the means or methodology to collect those data. The first one, as you can see, is on understanding droughts and heat from the past, and also from the past 15 to 20 years, and the current status of drought and heat. And they have been the methodology identified is called timeline. And the second one is on the impacts of drought and heat on different resources and their livelihood, and also on their health. And the third one is on looking at whether those impacts become additional burdens on women. And then the methodology used in here is using the daily clock. Using this daily clock is also looking at how women have spent their 24 hours, and when impacts of climate change, or even if they have to solve the drought and heat problems, how women are adjusting their time in a day. And the last one is looking at available and existing measures introduced both by the government and also by women themselves. So, and these four becomes and the knowledge and also the tools for women later on, because the data was collected by women themselves and also analyzed by themselves. And then together we prepare for policy briefs for them to do more in terms of advocacy. And from those information collected, we have different stories from the ground. Each and individual women have their own stories. And those are really, really powerful stories because it's from their own stories and their own experiences. And together they have been talking about those stories through different media and sharing with NGOs and other women, and also talking about these together with the governments as well. So, I mean, it's more on like building and empowering women's capacity and having a tools for them to talk about themselves and their stories. And those are becoming powerful in terms of it's not us, Climate Watch Thailand, talking about impacts of climate change, but those individual women are also talking about their impacts and questioning about the measures that have been implemented on the ground. Some of the examples that I could also share on these, on the different impacts of climate change, a number of resources have been badly impacted, and women have already spent their own money to overcome and to solve those impacts. And also, when we're looking at the additional burden on women, those impacts are already a burden on women, but the solutions to those droughts and heats are also becoming a burden on women. And this research together with women found out that women sleep less and less because they have to spend time in order to take care of the family members as usual, but then their time to solve the drought and also heat problems become an additional burden on women as well, not to talk about the expenses that have already been increasing among women household as well. And the last one, which is quite powerful as well, when we're looking at the measures implemented on the ground by the government, there are a number of solutions implemented by the government, for example, dams and large reservoirs, and also different initiatives and also innovations to help save the water. And we found out that those many measures by the government are not responding to women's needs. And then when we're looking at those initiatives implemented by the community and also by women themselves, they are fully engaged in those measures. They use their own money. So that responds quite well to the women's needs. So our policy on this that women would really like to pursue, to continue pursuing and to have a discussion with the government is, rather than the government investing a lot on a large project to solve drought and heat, why not engaging women and also providing the support so that women on the ground could have direct access and resources or even technologies to implement those measures that would be responding mostly to their needs. And with that, there are also advocacy opportunities arise that we sometimes need to create those opportunities as well. Or if there are some other chances where the government is also having a discussion on NDC or even on climate change master plans, these women are also amplifying their voices and also speaking on their own about the problems of climate change and how they must not be seen as a victim to climate impacts, but they are also part of the solutions. They know what to do and they want the resource, what kind of resources they need, and also what kind of knowledge in terms of climate projection that they need. And the last 2 slides is more on how are we going to make sure that this continue. So women together, they think that they might want, they would like to have a movement among themselves in order to push for their voices and to amplify their voices. So a movement is more or less nearly set up at the moment. And women were invited as well to speak of their own stories and their policies and their demands in terms of what they need to respond to their needs. There are quite a number of challenges. Some of the key challenges that we see is on the political space for women is quite limited. So we have to ensure that there are spaces for women to voice their concerns and needs. So we have tried these and also quite successful in a number of cases where women can also speak at the government's forums and also in different male-dominant forums as well. And also the policy brief of women have been accepted by different networks and alliances as well. The second one is on institutionalizing women's voices. We have to fight hard in order to make sure that every single policy process have identify and also include women's voices. And we want this to be institutionalized so that it's there and the government has to implement those inclusivity of women. And also, of course, in terms of the COVID situation, the digital economy, digital technology is really a challenge. Women on the ground doesn't really have a lot of access to notebooks or even like access to Wi-Fi and also 3G network. So that has to also, that is also be a challenge. And advocacy, we still need to do more in terms of engaging women in the advocacy work in the future as well, because it would also engage with the online advocacy as well at the moment. And also the government has been also trying to provide different tools in order to engage with other groups. So that could also mean that we really need to do more in terms of advocacy. And the movement would still have to go on in order to voice their concerns and also to show that the impacts are already real on the ground and resources and also technologies would be needed. And yes, the last one is on resources. This is in terms of like the funding as well, and also the timing of women to engage more and continue engaging, and also in terms of accessing to different technologies and also the knowledge, especially the scientific knowledge. And with that, I'm happy to hear comments and questions. Thank you very much.